all set for the Fosters San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. A very happy holiday to all of you celebrating this Easter weekend. Now, Formula One has been riveting entertainment this season. Here's the next instalment with Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thanks very much, Jim. Happy Easter, everybody back in the UK if you're celebrating it. Sunny day at the moment here in Imola, but a few clouds around. Crowd, as we've been hearing already, nothing like as big as it has been in the last couple of years. 70,000 people turned up on race day last year, and estimates I've heard around about 50 to 60,000 this year. You saw Ralph Furman briefly there in the Jordan. Didn't have a great time in qualifying yesterday. He's going to start from the pit lane. In fact, we're expecting quite a few shenanigans at the back of the grid at the start of this Grand Prix. Obviously, Jos Verstappen is starting from the pit lane too, and I have half a clue that Justin Wilson might come into the pit lane at the end of the parade lap, fill the car up with fuel and change his tactics there. It's all part of the new rules and the obligations the team have. Why is the crowd down this year? Well, I think they're a little bit confused, frankly, by Ferrari after the dominant season they enjoyed last year. I don't think the Italians expected to come to the fourth Grand Prix of the season to see that Michael Schumacher still hadn't won a race, still hadn't even been on the podium up to this point. But those are the circumstances, and every indication today that Ferrari intend to put that right. Qualifying yesterday, very much a family battle between the two Schumacher brothers. Michael took the pole by 1/100th of a second from his brother Ralph in the BMW Williams. But there are weightier family matters on both of their minds. Their mother, Elizabeth, sadly died this morning after a sudden illness. The two boys left the circuit here after qualifying yesterday and flew back to Cologne in Michael's jet, and were able to spend a few hours with their mother last night before returning to the circuit. The teams, and in fact the whole Formula One fraternity, has been extremely compassionate towards them. Both teams said they didn't have to race if they didn't want to. They have decided to race today. And the FIA have said that if they don't want to go on the podium or do the interviews after the race, should they get there, then they don't have to do that either. We will see, but certainly, Martin, a close race, I feel. The top four separated by just 1.5 tenths of a second in qualifying. The top 8 by a very, very small margin. You can see for yourself there on the screen. And it's by no means clear that Michael Schumacher is going to run and hide, but he does have to do his damage really in the early part of this race, doesn't he? As you were saying on the grid, while the Michelins on the Williams and the McLarens are struggling a little bit in the first 10 laps of the race.
Yes, and they're also, of course, the first 4 on the grid, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello, Montoya, are separated by only 1 point in the World Championship too, and they're a long way down the list. 3 of them have got 8 points, and Ralf Schumacher has only 7. Leader has Raikkonen has 24. So they all urgently need some points in the top 4. So they can't really afford to trip over each other too much. Webber, you can tell, I think, is just out for the pleasure this afternoon, and he's going to do whatever he can get done, and he's going to enjoy it enormously. I think he's right up there, as he said, with the big boys. Raikkonen in 6th, healthy championship lead. I think he's probably one of the most relaxed men on the grid. Probably fancies today that a podium will do. Will just if he gets somewhere on the one of the steps of the podium, would get the job done for him. Villeneuve, Alonso, Button and Panis in 7th, 8th and 9th on the grid. They too need to really sort of kick-start their season. Not Alonso, of course, but certainly the BARs need to really deliver. And they say this could be their strongest race of the year. Coulthard's the man with most work to do. Made an error on his qualifying lap, and he's 12th on the grid. He was on a lap when they got the telemetry out that would have put him up there in 5th, so we know he's got the car underneath him. But of course, none of these drivers, other than just coasting round to the start of this Grand Prix, have turned a wheel since their hot lap on Saturday afternoon. No warm-ups now, and I have to say I'm super impressed with the way the teams have given us reliability despite very little time to work on their cars because of the new Parc Fermé rules, and the way the drivers have adapted so quickly to not having a lap under their wheels other than just coasting to the line. And they do coast to the line. They don't want to waste any of that valuable fuel that they've had to carry around with them in qualifying, and so now it's absolutely as if somebody's pressed the reset button and they start afresh this afternoon. Track temperatures 21, and air temp 18, similar to yesterday's qualifying, so they shouldn't have too many nasty surprises when the race does get underway. 2 drivers starting from the pit lane then, James.
Yeah, Furman and Verstappen. Watch out for Wilson, he's the black car at the back of the grid. Watch out for him diving into the pits at the end of this parade lap. Everybody getting away cleanly from the formation lap, I hope. Well, this Pitsonia is having a bit of a problem getting away from the line. He had some difficulties getting that car started in the pit lane. to go out to the grid. So a few dramas really on Pizzonia's car. Webber seems to have sailed through the whole weekend without too much technical difficulty, but Pizzonia had an engine failure as well yesterday morning. He's down in 15th place on the grid and certainly not performing at the moment the level his teammate Webber's been able to do.
So Wilson and Furman then still in the pit lane. They're taking advantage in some ways of the new regulations because they're able to refill as soon as this formation lap starts. They're able to change the car, put whatever fuel level they like in it, and start from the pit lane.
Tosa corner here. You can see the fuel going into Ralph Furman's car there in the closing stages. So they've done filled it really up to the gunnels. He's obviously going to be doing a one-stop strategy today with anything he can manage, really, I suppose, to make him competitive. We know that his teammate Fisichella, starting in 17th on the grid, is carrying a lot of fuel. We're expecting the front runners to make their first stop sometime between lap 15 and lap 20. We suspect that the Ferrari might have a little bit more fuel on board than the Williams and the Jaguar. We will wait and see. The McLaren possibly the same sort of fuel level as Ferrari, but what we might see today is quite a bit of flexibility. They might do 2 stops or 3 stops, and they'll make the decisions in the run-up to that first round of pit stops. The window is open to do either, really, from that position. It really does depend what happens off the line, and let's bear in mind we've not had the same order going into turn 1 as on the grid at any of the Grand Prix so far this season. It's been really jumbled up on the run down to turn 1 at each of the first 3 races.
Yes, it's also, I think, the first Grand Prix of the season where we've had a relatively normal grid and not changeable weather conditions. There was a lot of talk about rain today. We just haven't seen any of it at all at the moment. It is overcast, as you can see. But we're back to a normal situation for the first time this year. There then is the car of Verstappen and not Wilson, as I mentioned earlier on, and Furman too. But if you're on the back of the grid, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. By the time the pack have squabbled over the entry into the first 2 or 3 corners, you can be up where you would have been anyway. So you might as well take advantage, change your strategy, and hope it pays off later in the afternoon. I'll be amazed if anybody comes in before about 20 laps of the key runners.
Well, I was right about Wilson. He has dived into the pit lane in the second of the 2 Minardis. He's going to fuel it for a long one-stopper as well. Well, if you can do it, give it a try. But at the front, that's where the battle is today. The 2 Schumacher brothers then on the front row of the grid for the San Marino Grand Prix in Italy, waiting for the lights to come on. Waiting a long time for the lights to come on. Here we go. Great start by Villeneuve, and look at Montoya chopping across as well. Pizzonia hasn't taken the start, but side by side, Ralf Schumacher has done exactly what Martin suspected he might, and he's run round the outside of Michael Schumacher into the lead. That's Pizzonia, but we've got a Williams at the front here. It's Schumacher second, Barrichello third. Looks to me like one of these, it must be Montoya in 4th place. Yes, it is. McLaren 5th, that must be Raikkonen, and Alonso looks like he's made a decent start as well.
Yes, he has indeed. Webber had a terrible start. He's down in 11th place at the moment, so he did say he had to change the bite point of his clutch on the way to the line. Clearly they weren't entirely happy, and also Pizzonia in the second Jaguar not getting away at all. So a poor start to the afternoon, sadly, for Jaguar. Ralf Schumacher leads, Michael Schumacher, Barrichello, Montoya. Raikkonen managed to get up to 5th with Webber's demise. Alonso, Panis, Coulthard up to 8th. 4th place gain then for Coulthard, brings himself right into play from the get-go.
And you can see that Montoya is attacking the back of Rubens Barrichello. Luis spoke to both of them on the drivers' parade, and they're clearly very, very good friends. But today, that friendship put to one side. Montoya wants some points on the board. Williams have not had the best start to the season so far this year. Neither Ferrari for that matter, but Montoya certainly on the attack, as you can see. So it's really all gone pear-shaped for Jaguar at the start, hasn't it? Pizzonia pushed off the grid, Webber down to 11th place. That's the order at the end of lap 1, and that's how close it is still.
Jenson Button lost out as well. He's now down to 10th place, unfortunately, from his 9th place grid position. So the main winner then, Coulthard up 4. Trulli is up 2, Alonso's up 2, Mark Webber dropped 6, Villeneuve dropped 6 places as well. So and he started just behind Webber, so clearly Webber's tardy getaway held up Jacques Villeneuve too.
Yeah, it looked as though Villeneuve darted out. He got a very early start, Villeneuve. I thought he'd done very well, but clearly he got blocked by Webber, who must have had some problem getting moving, and that's cost Jacques Villeneuve dear. Montoya attacking, fastest first sector on lap 2 so far. He really wants a piece of Rubens Barrichello. No, look at the start there. You can see Webber going very slowly, and Villeneuve had to go right round the outside of him. You can see the Sauber on the right there as well.
Yes, and I think Jenson Button had some contact further down the field. He got barged out of the way, and Webber away slow from fifth. Look and watch as they go through, and there's 4 or 5 abreast there. Some contact. Coulthard on the grass, made it through, and Ralf Schumacher with an easy victory then. Here's Barrichello. He gets a grandstand view. Ralf Schumacher with the stronger run down the outside, tends to be a bit grippy. It is the racing line there, and that's exactly what the runners needed this afternoon, because we think that Williams will go through a period of lacking a little bit of speed, and it'll back the Ferraris up into the pack. Exactly what we needed to happen for the spectacle this afternoon, although exactly what Ferrari did not need to happen.
Let's just explain then, Martin, for the benefit of the viewers, exactly what you're talking about when the Michelin tyre drops off. After this first 1 or 2 laps of hard work that they've done, they drop off. What do you mean?
Well, the rubber sort of goes into little balls on the top of the surface, and it takes a while as the wear goes down, as they wear the rubber down in the grooves. The tyre starts coming back to the driver and giving them back the grip. But there's a stage they go through where you're sort of on tiny ball bearings effectively as the pieces of rubber are breaking away. It's the way that the compound and construction works. Some tracks, especially the hotter tracks, they don't have this drama, but when it's a bit cool and on certain types of tarmac surface, it does hurt the tyres, and as you can see, Michael Schumacher all over the back of his brother now.
Yes, it doesn't happen so much, it seems, to Bridgestone. We saw this pattern last year as well in the Grand Prix, and as Martin was saying, in the hotter tracks, the Michelin so far this year haven't suffered this problem, but here today they were all expecting difficulties in the first 10 laps. After about lap 10, you should start to see the Michelins coming good again, and the question really is, can Ralf Schumacher keep his brother behind him for the first 10 laps? This is lap 3. We're on board with Juan Montoya in 4th place, bearing down towards the start-finish line again. Rubens Barrichello immediately in front of us. In front of him again, Michael Schumacher, and then race leader Ralf Schumacher as we cross the start-finish line. And, well, Williams once again taking the fight to Ferrari, no question about it here at Imola, as they did last year and the year before when Ralf Schumacher won the race. Look at this, though. Michael closing right on the back of his brother now as they come out of the Tamburello.
There's no way to pass on the way into Villeneuve. The approach is so fast, there is no braking zone, so the speed differential never develops to enable you to overtake. There is a chance into Tosa, but you're going to have to muscle your way through and be very close before you start. And Michael Schumacher is now in the turbulent air of his brother, and that will also generate some handling problems for him. So Ralf can control the race. It's so difficult to overtake around here.
Both of these men don't just want to win, they need a win. Ralf hasn't won for over 12 months. Michael hasn't won a race yet this year. Needs to get on terms with Kimi Raikkonen, although he'll be pleased to see at the moment that Raikkonen is down in 5th place, so he's definitely going to try and score some more points than him today. But both Ferraris, you see, are very competitive in this phase of the race.
Michael Schumacher making an adjustment down to the right of the steering wheel there. That'll be the brake balance. He'll be trying to just find where he needs the percentage of the effort as he hits the brake pedal. Roughly about 57% of it goes into the front brakes and 43% into the rear. Because of the weight transfer, that is where you've got the most grip. And Ralf now really struggling to get that Williams into the Variante Bassa, and Michael has a chance of a run at him. Will he have enough straight line speed? Ralf has the racing line. Now he's released it to Michael, but says, hey, you're going to have to brake much later than that, bro.
Whoa, there was nothing, no quarter given or taken there. Michael Schumacher got right alongside his brother Ralf, and we've seen plenty of racing between these two. Ralf really is very sensitive to accusations. He doesn't like going wheel to wheel with his brother, doesn't like trying to overtake him, and you saw for yourself there, he was not going to give an inch to Big Bro.
Absolutely, and Ralf, then the critical thing for him now, he's better to go a little bit slower in certain places because they just can't get past him where you have these very high speed entry into corners. But he must not make an error. He's got to keep it on the island and not release these two Ferraris if he wants a chance to win this Grand Prix.
But equally, from Michael Schumacher's perspective, he knows he's got to attack in the next 4 or 5 laps, because then the Michelin tyres will start to come back to Ralf Schumacher, whose handling balance will get better and his performance and speed will get better. Lap times dropping now into the 1:26s as Michael Schumacher once again lines up his brother. You can see the pace of the Williams is dropping off, and that's allowing everybody else to concertina up behind him.
Yes, and definitely the Ferrari's faster. but he's got the turbulent air and he hasn't got a look into the corner. Now this is where Ralph needs to be super neat and tidy. It was better that time. He got the front of the car where he wanted it, and you begin to wonder if those Michelins are coming back into the zone. But Michael with a great slipstream this time. Ralph's going to have to cover the racing line, and he does do.
You saw the way he shot forward. That was where Michael Schumacher hit the brakes, and such is the extraordinary braking effect of these Formula One cars. The speed differential's enormous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably less than a tenth of a second difference between the two brothers putting their foot on the brake pedal. But when you're travelling at that speed, that's how you have these big accidents. The guy in front brakes 5 metres earlier than you're expecting him to, and you can see that speed differential. You just smash into the back of him.
So Ralf Schumacher keeping his head, hoping that all around him are losing theirs. And he'll have been greatly buoyed, I think, by a statement by Frank Williams yesterday afternoon, talking after the qualifying session, where he categorically denied that he was talking to Villeneuve or Fisichella or anybody else about replacing Ralf Schumacher next year. He said Ralf will be with us definitely until the end of 2004. And I think great sensitivity from Frank at a difficult time for Ralf, generally with his mother dying, etc., that he gave him a big vote of confidence yesterday. And look, right now, Michael, again, as they come down the hill, look how close he is, diving down the inside towards Ravazza. But once again, Ralf Schumacher cuts him off.
Yeah, that's you have to be closer than that. That Michael's playing now. He knew he'd never get through there, but he's trying to distract his brother so that he misses the braking point. And it's a crucial braking point into Ravazza because it's quite steeply downhill and it's easy to run past the apex there. So Michael just teasing him because he knows he can't drive cleanly past him, but he's got to be very careful he doesn't lose the nose of that Ferrari, which he's done often in the past.
And the good news for Ralf Schumacher and the Williams team is that the tyres do seem to be coming into their own now. He's back into the low 1 minute 25s on that last lap, so the Michelin seem to be starting to work again.
Absolutely, and I agree with you, James. I think Michael lost momentum by coming in on the wrong line into Ravazza, and that's why the gaps developed and why Rubens Barrichello is closer behind. Montoya just hanging on, isn't he? Raikkonen's 2.5 seconds behind them in 5th. Alonso 1.1 seconds behind Raikkonen for 6th. Panis, Coulthard, Heidfeld, Button remains 10th. Webber 11th, D'Amata, Villeneuve, Trulli, Fisichella, Frentzen, Verstappen, Furman, Wilson and Pizzonia round out the top 20.
This is lap 7 at Imola. The gap between the first car, Ralf Schumacher, and the 8th place car, David Coulthard, is only 10 seconds, so they're all still pretty close together. They're all fairly level on pace at the moment, certainly amongst the front four.
Here's a significant factor. Fastest man of the entire race so far down to Tosa, i.e. sector 1, is Montoya. So yes, James, those Michelins have gone through the critical period. Mentioning Pizzona in 20th, all 20 runners, clearly they got the Jaguar fired up at some point, even though he's now a lap adrift.
Coming across the line then to start lap 8. Quick update for you on Ralf Furman. We saw him starting from the pit lane. He's down in 18th place at the moment, racing with Jos Verstappen, who also started from pit lane in front of him. Look at this.
Ralf made a mistake. Ralf ran wide on the way in. And again, he's having to cover the line down to Villeneuve. And a driver error there. But once again, a very high-speed entry and room only for one. But Ralf suddenly put himself back under pressure just as he'd built a fraction of a gap.
Let's talk about that pressure. What's it like when you've got a guy crawling all around all over the back of you? You know for a period of time he's got a faster car than you. Defence rather than attack is in your mind.
Yes, you've got to drive defensively, then you start running offline, then your tyres get dirty, and if you're busy watching him instead of your braking points, that's when the silly errors creep in. But that Williams is riding the curbs nicely and is working quite nicely, but still the Ferrari is the faster car.
This is the corner where Ralf Schumacher had an accident on Saturday morning that we all thought would really hamper his qualifying performance, but he got into the spare car yesterday, the car he's racing here today, and he went so close to stealing pole position. It really was a massive effort from Ralf Schumacher, who's had a difficult start to this 2003 season, has scored points in every Grand Prix, but they've been little points, little nickels and dime points, not the kind of podiums that he's been used to getting and the Williams team have been used to getting, so he desperately needs a good result today.
Right, Montoya's just pumped in 2 consecutive fastest laps of the Grand Prix so far, moving himself up to within striking distance of Rubens Barrichello. That'll wipe the smile, if there is one, on the face of Rubens off, because Rubens is watching a great scrap in front of him. Suddenly he's going to have the full attention of his lifelong friend and fan, by the sounds of it, Juan Pablo Montoya. As we head now, Montoya making it a good 4-way scrap, and Raikkonen keeping a watching brief. The McLaren not really in the action this weekend. They just do not seem to have the speed to cope with the Williams and Ferraris.
You can see confirmation there, the fastest lap by Montoya. Yes, Ron Dennis, the McLaren team boss, saying that they really got a bit lost on setup on Friday. They were trying to work out what would be the best race tyre, and as they were doing endless comparisons, they just lost their way on getting these cars balanced, and it really took a big effort from the engineering department at McLaren to tune the cars in yesterday for qualifying. Raikkonen did a good job. DC made a small mistake, David Coulthard, on his lap, and that put him down into 12th place, but he's managed to recover from the start. He's in 8th, and a quiet confidence at McLaren, certainly at this stage of the race. This is lap 9.
Ralph still going through armfuls of understeer again now, and Montoya dropping back, so we've got a yo-yo effect. Ralph just can't get the front of that car in consistently where he needs it to be, and Montoya just suddenly, having put in that spurt, has now fallen off the pace, and it's Michael Schumacher with an easy new fastest lap of the race on a 1:24.5, and you're watching an almighty scrap then for 14th, 15th and 16th. The field is tightly packed all the way down. Ralf Schumacher leads then by a mere 0.4 of a second.
Lap 11 of the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. The front four are right together. There they are on your screens. Ralf Schumacher leading. Second, Michael Schumacher. Third, Rubens Barrichello. Fourth, Juan Montoya. And this is a scrap which is just beginning to develop now between Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren and Fernando Alonso, who just a moment ago did a really quick lap in the Renault. And Ralf Schumacher just gone faster again. Down into the low 1:24s now here at Imola. This is a scorching pace. A really aggressive bit of racing by all of these guys as Olivier Panis makes a pit stop.
Panis stopping on at the end of lap 11 then, and that means he's 3 stopping, and that means his grid position was really he was quite clearly carrying quite a lot less fuel yesterday afternoon, certainly than the front runners. Anybody that pits much before 20 are kind of deluding themselves. Coulthard will be mighty pleased about that. It releases him now to try to close the 8-second gap to Alonso and his teammate Raikkonen.
Yeah, Panis qualified in 10th place yesterday on the grid. It's very interesting to see when Alonso makes a fuel stop, because there was some speculation that Renault perhaps hadn't carried all that much gas in the car. They too, like McLaren, were struggling to get these cars dialed into the racetrack through Friday. They really were very uncompetitive, both Renault and McLaren. Got it a little bit more right yesterday in qualifying. certainly in the hands of Alonso and Raikkonen, and it looks as though D'Amata, the second Toyota, also on that same 3-stop plan. This is lap 13.
Now Montoya goes fastest again, so it seems to be as if they push hard for 2 laps on the Michelin, they then have to give it a breather for a couple of laps, and suddenly the Ferraris come to the fore. We saw Alonso go fastest, Michelin runner, Montoya, Ralf Schumacher all going faster, so it's yo-yoing around, but still Ralf Schumacher able now with a tiny bit of breathing space to just drive exactly the part of the racetrack he wants to be on.
Just to explain to you what I mean when I say it's lap 13, the graphics you see on your screen tell you what the result was at the end of the lap we just completed. And so we're on lap 13 because lap 12 has been completed, and you can see that Juan Montoya set the fastest lap. So every lap someone's going quicker each time, and as Martin says, they're all pushing very, very hard indeed. Although it seems that Montoya, for all his fast laps, isn't really able to get onto the back of Barrichello, is he? He's not closing that little last bit.
No, because he's burning it up a little bit too much to do the fast tours. Raikkonen still remaining about 3.5 seconds behind this leading pack.
So just 0.7 of a second the gap at the end of the last lap. Michael Schumacher doesn't seem to be trying to attack his brother anymore. He was unable to do so in the early phase when Ralf Schumacher was vulnerable, and now he's just sitting there behind him, wondering about strategy, wondering about what they're going to do as they start their 14th lap. Yes, Martin?
Yes, it's going to be some sweaty palms in the pits, because I think the mechanics will be looking at this thinking, oh, it's going to be down to us this afternoon. This is all looking a bit tight. Ted is down in the pits.
Yes, absolutely, Martin. The feeling down here is that Ferrari have indeed missed their chance. They will have to wait for the stops now. I think Williams actually have to stop slightly before Ferrari, and I think that's going to be in the next 5 or 6 laps. But the big question for me, Martin, is will the Williams put new Michelins on this car if they're going to go through that drop-off phase that we've just seen?
Yes, they may well choose just to leave the old fronts on. We'll keep a careful eye on that, Ted, and I'm sure you will down there too. Heidfeld pitted, so he was in 8th place when he pitted, and again an early stop. Then they're all 3 stopping this afternoon. Yeah,
and we're expecting one of the Renaults to come in fairly soon as well. Wondering if it's going to be Alonso, and I think it could be Alonso. Certainly Jarno Trulli, his teammate, is down in 13th place at the moment. He's 3.5 seconds behind Jacques Villeneuve. Quick update for you on Mark Webber. He's now up into 10th place in the Jaguar, having dropped down from 5th at the start. Got a really, really bad start. Something clearly didn't bite in his car. That's the Renault crew ready for one of their 2 guys to come in. And as the top 4 go on to start their 14th lap, very much as you were at the front. Barrichello just dropping back a little bit from his teammate Michael Schumacher. Kimi Raikkonen, as you can see, has not got Alonso behind him, so it was Fernando Alonso on lap 15 due to come in. Jaguar, I think, are going to get ready as well, getting ready now for one of their 2 drivers to come in as well. Alonso's stop quite long, so it looks like they might have switched the strategy there. Certainly it was a 3-stop fuel load to start with. I think they may have switched to a 2. Reasonable amount of fuel went into that car.
Yeah, 9 seconds worth. That's what's that going to be? It's 13 litres per second.
About 62 kilos. It is.
All right, it's 3 kilos per lap, so that'll get him about 21 laps down the road. We're currently on lap 15.
Up the hill out of Tosa. When are these guys going to make their stops? One of the crucial questions. Would they even come in on the same lap and have a pit stop competition? Alonso then feeding back in front of the Jaguar there, and his teammate Jarno Trulli as well. So that means that Alonso has fed back in 8th place.
Well, that's interesting then, isn't it? Because it means that going lighter and getting a better grid slot, not getting held up in the pack in the early stages, has paid off handsomely for Alonso over, if it is indeed, I didn't quite catch which Renault was in front of the other, but if that indeed is the case, it's worked out very nicely for Alonso.
Certainly has, because he can push quite hard when all the cars in front of him dive in for their pit stop. So keep your eyes on Fernando Alonso. He's been on the podium twice already this year, and once in rather controversial circumstances in Brazil 2 weeks ago when he brought the race to an end with an accident. But certainly this young man really stamping his name all over Formula 1 this season, as is Mark Webber, as is Kimi Raikkonen. There you can see the Renault. Here's the Jaguar of Mark Webber into the pits from 8th place. Williams team also getting ready. Ferrari just coming out just to get their gear out of the way of the Williams car. Mark Webber in the pits, not changing the front tyres, you see, as Ted said, exactly right. Renault, however, are changing the front tyres on Trulli's car.
They could always be putting used ones on, of course, more heavily used ones on. Meanwhile, back on the track, Montoya's putting in a very fast lap. If Williams come in now, A, I'll be surprised, and B, Ferrari will be very, very happy if Williams are now about to make a pit stop. And we'll keep an eye on that. We think Ralf Schumacher, race leader, is... yes, Williams are ready then. So we think Ralph's coming in this lap at the end of lap 16. And again, that is quite early.
In he comes, race leader into the pits. Michael Schumacher then leads in a Ferrari at Imola. Ted.
Well, we were right, James. This was the only way that Williams could actually get on terms with Ferrari, was to run actually a bit lighter. Now, Ralf has actually put new tyres all round. Oh, there's a problem. He couldn't get it into gear. Now he manages to get it into gear. He's away. By the way, have you seen the black stripe over the front of Ralph's helmet? Obviously for his mother.
Yes, and a bad pit stop then for Ralphie. I think he had it in gear. He just couldn't get the clutch to bite in a successful way. And brand new Michelins go on that Williams, as we have the BAR of Button, who was 7th due to the pit stops. Button stopping as well then. So it'll also be, I think, McLaren with a smile on their face too. They're 5th and 6th, and presumably fueled to go similar distance to the Ferraris.
And a man who's very much got the message is Rubens Barrichello. You can see for yourself, he's absolutely flying at the moment. He's closing in on the back of his team leader, Michael Schumacher. And the reason for that is because he knows he wants to be in front of Ralf Schumacher when Ferrari make their stop. So maybe Ferrari didn't have too much more fuel in the car than the Williams after all. Maybe they were quite closely matched. Which one is coming in first? Well, Barrichello's pace might suggest it would be him, but perhaps it could be race leader Michael Schumacher. Pit lane exit right in front. Is it him? No, it's not.
So Michael then, if Rubens does come in, Rubens is in the pits. Michael Schumacher goes through with an easy, fantastic new fastest lap of the race, 1:22.491, a stunning lap time from Michael Schumacher. He will clearly, when he pits, get out in front of the Williams, because we saw Ralph away, and Montoya in the pit too. And as I said, McLaren are going to have a smile on their face, I suspect, but Michael Schumacher will surely come out and lead the race. That's an awful lot of fuel, James, if that was a regular pit stop.
Well, it'd be very interesting. Hopefully one of our F1 ITV pit crew can give us some information about that. Possibly a problem we're hearing on the right front tyre for Montoya delayed him. So it's not all fuel that's gone into that car. Certainly this is too early in the race, 62-lap race, far too early, lap 18, to be thinking about fueling it to the finish.
Barrichello crossed the white line as he exited the pits. I don't know if that one counts here, but he quite clearly went over it. And we'll keep an eye out for that one on the computer to see if the stewards have noticed it or are concerned about it. And Michael Schumacher absolutely flying now.
Yeah, that was something that the stewards were very hot on last year, wasn't it? It's safety issues. You can see Michael Schumacher's pit crew getting ready for him. And last year the stewards very hot on drivers cutting onto the track too early after their pit stop. That's what that white line is for on the exit of the pit lane. We believe that Rubens may have cut it. Here's the race leader, Michael Schumacher, on lap 18, coming into the pits, slows the car down the requisite amount, turns right and straight into his box.
It's great to be the world champions here from the season before. You've got a very direct entry into your pit box. It's easy for everybody to cope with. The car's straight when it arrives, spending quite a bit of time clearing some debris out of the right-hand side pod. When we talk about right hand, we always talk about the driver's right or left. That's how you refer to the sides of a Formula 1 car. Well, Michael, he also cuts that line, so I'm assuming then that is just the normal line to delineate the side of the racetrack, and is not as we see at some circuits. So Michael Schumacher with a good stop and rejoins then in front of Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
But what was interesting there, Martin, is that Rubens Barrichello wasn't able to get in front of Ralf Schumacher. So despite that problem that Ralf had with a stuttering start away from his pit stop, Rubens just didn't work for him, the strategy-wise. So Michael Schumacher, what made the difference there, clearly, was Michael Schumacher's stunning lap during the period of time when Ralf was in the pits. Released, he did a 1:22, and no one could match it. Big tail slide there from Frentzen. Very nearly collects one of the mechanics of Fisichella's car, and it looks to me as though Fisichella's got some problems.
I think it's Raikkonen and Coulthard currently leading. They haven't stopped. Michael Schumacher, the computer hasn't sorted itself out at the moment, but at the moment I believe it's Raikkonen, Coulthard 1-2. Here is Raikkonen. I believe he's leading the Grand Prix. We haven't had sight of Michael around the circuit to see and I'm assuming then that, yes, it is indeed, Raikkonen leads the race.
Yep, so McLaren have put more fuel in the car for qualifying yesterday, and they knew they would take the pain during the qualifying session, but it might pay off for them during the race. They tend to run quite conservative strategies in the past, the McLaren team, but they've got steadily more and more aggressive as they've come to terms with these new rules, and they really got it right this year, you have to say, more often than Williams or McLaren. Have they got it right today, I wonder? They're certainly both still out there at the moment. Raikkonen leading by 9.7 seconds from David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher is 12 seconds behind the World Championship leader Raikkonen. Ralf Schumacher 15 seconds behind him, and Barrichello 16 seconds behind Raikkonen. So if he makes a stop in the near future, he'll feed in, well, behind those guys. Pitsonia into the pits.
His teammate Webber has a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and I did notice that when Webber came in, his fuel flap, which is connected to the speed limiter, didn't come up until he was nearly into his pit garage, nearly into his garage of men to change his tyres and refuel him. So Webber did not get the speed limiter on, or it failed to function, and we have a BAR of Villeneuve out of the Grand Prix.
What a shame for Jacques Villeneuve. Came here this weekend saying he thought this would be BAR's most competitive weekend of the year. He was aiming for a podium today, seriously and realistically. He thought this car capable of it. They've certainly got a big step in terms of engine power from Honda this weekend, but it's come to naught for Jacques.
Rather inelegant view there from the camera on the airbox of a driver getting out, complete with tubes and hands device around the neck and all the belts getting in your way. They get tucked up in your overalls. It's a really clumsy job to get out of a Formula 1 car. But meanwhile, Raikkonen and Coulthard are now in the late 1 minute 22s, early 1 minute 23s. There's exactly 10 seconds between the pair of them. They're lapping faster than the pack behind them because they have less fuel on board and their cars seem to be working nicely. This is an action replay of Villeneuve coasting out of the Grand Prix, the first retirement this afternoon.
And the big question is, how long can Kimi Raikkonen stay out there? You need about 20 seconds in order to pit and rejoin in front of the car behind you. You need 20 seconds of margin. At the moment, Raikkonen has 10 over Coulthard, 13.5 over Michael Schumacher, 16.9 over Ralf, as Webber takes his drive-through penalty. And well, he said to Martin on the grid he fancied a quiet afternoon of keeping his head down and bringing it home to points. He's had a poor start and now a drive-through penalty, and really his afternoon is appearing to be shot to bits at the moment. McLaren are getting ready, we're being told, for a pit stop. It's not Raikkonen.
No, must be Coulthard then. Traditionally at McLaren, whoever's highest on the grid of the two gets the chance to choose when he wants to come in. You would assume they will always go a little bit longer. So Raikkonen is who runs longer. Coulthard it is who pits first, and Coulthard is pitting right now. There he is then. And let's see how much fuel they're going to get in this. We can't see the nozzle from that camera angle. He's well in there. DC's ready to go. He's on the rev limiter. He's in first gear. Hits the button and a good stop. That seemed like a full 9.8 seconds worth of fuel too, James.
Yeah, well, just over 60 kilos of fuel then going into that car. That should take him to around about lap 43 of this 62-lap San Marino Grand Prix.
What's significant for me, I don't think it'll work out for Coulthard, but I've got a feeling that Raikkonen might just feed in somewhere very close to Montoya. Louise?
Yeah, just caught up with Jacques Villeneuve walking through the paddock. Jacques, you said to me yesterday that things go well until race day. You've just proved yourself right, haven't you?
Well, we seem to get all the bad luck in between the two cars. That's just the way it is, and it's frustrating, but we just got to keep working hard because the car is quick.
What actually happened?
I think it's hydraulic. I'm not sure yet, but suddenly it just stopped.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, there's a little bit of smoke around. It's always difficult to know whether it's oil or hydraulic fluid. And Raikkonen then, race leader Raikkonen, pits at the end of lap 22. And he looks like he's got a clean run down. The man steps out with a lollipop to say, hey, stop here, this is for you. And in he goes to a man-made garage of 22 people ready to service him. 9.8 for Coulthard, 8.6 less fuel than for Raikkonen, it would seem, because Coulthard's stop looked pretty smooth too.
They're trying to get him out in front of Rubens Barrichello, who was running in fourth place. Have they done it? There is Rubens Barrichello. There's Montoya behind him. No! Rubens gives him a little wiggle as he goes through. So he is in front of Montoya, but not in front of Barrichello. Nevertheless, the strategy has certainly worked out for the McLaren team and Kimi Raikkonen, because he was a clear fifth and trailing the back of Montoya before this pit stop sequence, and now look, you can see he's in fourth, and he very, very nearly was in third.
Yes, it was the short stop was clearly to enable them to at least clear Montoya comfortably, and hopefully, as you said, James, there's Montoya in the far distance, so it does move Raikkonen up a place. It's a question of where I think Coulthard was 10 seconds behind, so Coulthard won't enjoy that kind of advantage.
Lap 23 then at Imola, still an awful lot to play for. Fantastic onboard shot of Michael Schumacher attacking the curbs here. He leads the race. Ralf Schumacher second, third is Barrichello, fourth is Raikkonen, and fifth is Juan Montoya. Lap 25 of this 62-lap San Marino Grand Prix. This guy has yet to finish a race in 2003, and it doesn't look as though this is going all that swimmingly for him at the moment. Justin Wilson in the European Minardi's coming to the pits. The engine seems to have stopped. They're trying to get it started again. That kind of silver lollipop thing you can see coming in from the side is just to prevent fuel splashing on the hot exhausts. Obviously that would be very, very risky. That's Kimi Raikkonen, currently in fourth place. Race strategy by the McLaren team certainly has boosted him a little bit. Just narrowly missed out on being third after the first round of pit stops. Michael Schumacher is leading Ralf Schumacher by 7.3 seconds. Barrichello is just, well, he's less than a second behind Ralf. Then it's Raikkonen, 2 seconds behind Barrichello. Montoya seems to be dropping back from Raikkonen at the moment. Seems to be struggling a little bit since his pit stop. Coulthard is closing the gap on him. He's 6 seconds behind Montoya in 6th place. 7th still Alonso. 8th Panis. 9th Button. 10th Heidfeld. Mark Webber we saw having problems at the start, and he's had a drive-through penalty. He's in 12th for Jaguar, and Ralph Furman is 15th, and it looks as though Wilson's afternoon, if it's not at an end, is certainly going to have a lengthy timeout.
Yeah, I think it's at an end. There was a trail of fluid underneath, looked like oil. So terminal problems there, I would imagine, for the Minardi of Justin Wilson. The second retirement then of the afternoon. 18 runners remaining. The leader, Michael Schumacher, now 7.8 seconds clear and much faster than anybody else in the field. A little more reminiscent of last year than this year so far, but the Ferrari, particularly the Bridgestones, I think, have threatened to be strong here. We thought the Williams, with their new aero package, and if they want to be part of the game plan, we need Williams to be winning some races, and so do they right now, before the new Ferrari and new McLaren. And the McLarens appear on the scene. You've got to assume they're going to be faster when they do finally turn up. So Williams need to make hay while the sun shines.
There's the two Jordans circulating together. Furman at the moment in front, it appears, of Fisichella, 15th and 16th, the two of them. I've got some information actually about the new cars when they're going to appear. The new Ferrari is due to do a test this week at Mugello in Tuscany. If it completes three whole race distances, then team technical director Ross Brawn has said they will bring it to Barcelona, certainly a track that Ferrari fancy they'll do well on, as Fisichella lines up his teammate Furman for a pass. Look at the front wing jiggling around.
Presumably Furman will get the call to let Fizzy through. Fizzy has made a pit stop, and you do not let, if you've got two cars in the same team on different strategies, you cannot let them hold each other up, otherwise the strategy goes to pot. And I'm surprised that Furman is not under instruction then to release Fisichella, who quite clearly is at least on a two-stopper.
We're being told by the stewards, incident involving car 18 under investigation. That's Justin Wilson, but he's got problems enough at the moment down the pit lane. How much longer is this going to go on for? It's an interesting little story, isn't it? Ralph Furman we saw coming in very early on. In fact, he started from the pit lane. They filled the thing with fuel. This is lap 27. He's got to make a stop sooner or later. Is he coming in now? Yes, there's your answer. So Fisichella is released. As Ralph Furman pits from 15th place, Fisichella takes that position up. And I was saying, I had a little information for you about new cars. Ron Dennis, the boss of the McLaren team, said the new McLaren will be seen no earlier than Canada, but no later than Silverstone. Due to run for the first time this Friday at Le Castellet in France, and obviously we'll keep you posted.
It's later than we all expected. Louise?
Yeah, just a bit of an update for you on Justin Wilson. The problem is that the team can't get any fuel into the car. He came in and the rig didn't deliver any fuel, so they brought him back in again. Now, they have got two rigs. They're not using the second one, so I would assume it's some kind of problem with the fueling mechanism actually on the car. They're working on it, though, to see if they can fix it and get him back out again.
OK, well, let's hope they do. Obviously, the trail of oil I saw underneath the cars they were pushing in was from another time they wheeled the car in and out, but it did look pretty terminal. But let's hope they do get some fuel then in Wilson's car. And Panis pits again in the Toyota. He was 8th. We know he's on a 3-stopper for the afternoon. So Toyota desperately beginning to need some World Championship points. I know there's pressure coming from Tokyo, and they're not delivering for the amount of money that they're spending.
Yep, Panis coming into the pits then. New set of rear tyres going on. Just to clarify what I was saying about the new McLaren, Canada, the Canadian Grand Prix is round 8 of the World Championship. This is round 4, so we won't see it for at least another 3 races. Here's your race leader, Michael Schumacher, lap 28, 9.5 seconds now ahead of Ralf Schumacher, doing very much what he did last year and really exerting himself in this middle part of the race. Really push as far as Michael Schumacher is concerned.
Barrichello's the man beginning to apply pressure now in 3rd. Just as you can see, that represents 0.7 of a second on the clock. Doesn't look that much on the racetrack, does it? On board then we see that fight. That is what it looks like to be 3rd in a Grand Prix, and that's what it looked like to be chasing the 2nd place man. He disappears into a dot, doesn't he, into the distance there as he gets on the throttle a half a corner ahead of you, and the amount of acceleration these cars have got is just defies belief, even when you've driven them for a long amount of time. But that's what we call understeer, where the front's not biting and the tyres are scrubbing across the racetrack, and it seems as if they're pretty nip and tuck on their pace. Ralf Schumacher 2nd, Barrichello 3rd. Ted?
I've just been into the Williams garage, Martin. Juan Pablo Montoya is complaining he's losing too much time in sectors 2 and 3. It is a problem with these tyres, they're out of balance. They are going to put a new set on them when he comes in for a pit stop. That's going to be in the next few laps, I believe.
Yes, out of balance. I think that means we've not got a consistent amount of front compared to the rear grip, rather than the wheel wobble you get on your road car when there's a lead weight falling off and goes out of balance.
Yeah, he's had a few problems, Montoya. He was complaining yesterday afternoon that the reason he was a little bit uncompetitive in qualifying was because the tyre pressures weren't right, and he had terrible problems getting the car to turn into the corners, and when they analysed it afterwards, the tyre pressures he felt were not what he wanted. So clearly they're having a few little niggles, and clearly this car is very sensitive to that kind of thing.
All Formula 1 cars are. Tyre pressure's critical. It's rather an old-fashioned system if you think about it. Nitrogen into a tyre through a valve. But a tyre is a spring and it's undamped. There's no control when that spring releases in a tyre, and how the tyre is presented to the racetrack under high loads in corners, and quite clearly the pressure inside that tyre is absolutely critical. Michael Schumacher's lead now over 10 seconds, 10.2 seconds, but finally Ralf Schumacher beginning now to match his lap times. But Williams are out in the pit lane. Are they going to stop Montoya much earlier than expected? We're expecting Montoya in, is our information. So quite clearly he's decided he's had enough of that set of tyres.
Yes, it's only recently that he came in. This is lap 30 of the 62 lap San Marino Grand Prix. Sure that they will fuel this car to go right through to the finish for Juan Montoya, to give him half a chance of being able to do something in the closing stages of the race. And the Williams mechanics, you can see, bringing out a new set, not in tyre blankets, interestingly. And it looks like they're going to put new tyres on front and rear for Montoya. And look at Barrichello closing in now on the back of Ralf Schumacher. He's pegging this gap, bringing it down all the time. Barrichello faster in the final sector than he's been throughout the Grand Prix so far, but very much matched on lap times, actually.
That's going to put Montoya behind Coulthard and bring him out right into the action with Alonso. Ted?
Yes, Montoya into the pit. He didn't whack the front jackman like Ralf Schumacher did before. Oh, they had a problem with the fuel rig. They've had to switch to the backup. That now is working. The new tyres are on. But that wasn't a long stop, was it?
Not considering they spent time swapping over the fuel hose, Ted. I didn't quite catch it. But what are we going to see here? An action replay of Jordan, I think, literally just getting out of the way, basically, and obeying the blue flag. So that really does hurt Montoya, and surely puts him now back between Alonso and Button. And Michael Schumacher not at all happy, felt he'd been held up by the Jordan.
Yep. Well, I actually thought that would have been like a wave, actually, a friendly wave rather than a wave of a fit. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, a little gesture there from Michael Schumacher. We've seen a few gestures over the years, but this is Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber. New set of tyres on for him on lap 31. They've really not been on the pace at all this weekend, have they? Really struggling, both Frentzen and Heidfeld. Frentzen had a few problems with his engine. Michael Schumacher lining up Cristiano De Mata, the back marker in the Toyota, to get past him. And Ralf Schumacher is going to be making a stop as well.
And De Mata just sliced across the nose of the world champion, did not recognise the blue flags or the leader trying to pass him, and now does so. Ralf Schumacher in the pits too, so Williams short-fueled for that second stint, very short-fueled with their two drivers. And well, they've flattered to deceive, I think, this afternoon. I've been somewhat amazed at how early they've come in on both their stops, it has to be said, and that puts him out right into the path of David Coulthard, but crucially ahead of Coulthard.
Yep, Coulthard was fifth, so Ralf Schumacher has rejoined in fourth. And I guess the question we've got to ask now is, can they go to the finish with that car? There's still another 31 laps to go, and he's been in for fuel twice. I don't think, did Ralf short fuel when he first came in? 6.4 seconds, yes he did, so he may have to three-stop this afternoon.
Yes, indeed. They may well be stopping again. A long way to go yet in this Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher's lead was 10.3, but his brother pitted on that lap. Barrichello will go up into second then, and Raikkonen will be third, Ralf fourth, Coulthard fifth.
Webber into the pits for the second time. He's had a drive-through penalty, remember, this afternoon. He was lying in ninth place, so he'd mounted a great recovery, really, from the misfortunes he's had. Where's he feeding back into the system? That's his teammate just in front of him now. The race leader also going through.
Pitsonia down in 18th place at the moment, but I think Webber's nearly a lap ahead of him. Pitsonia did not get away at the start of this Grand Prix at all well. Montoya now going quite quickly out on the racetrack too. Ted?
Well, not for long, Montoya's not going quickly. They didn't get any fuel in his car. We saw that they had a problem with the rig. The secondary one must have failed. The crew are out ready for him now just to put that fuel in.
So, disaster then for Montoya. It's just not falling into his hands this afternoon. He'll be getting fed up with that pit lane before he's finished today, and it just makes it easier and easier for Ferrari. Now running 1-2, and also McLaren is playing into their hands too. They're just, they haven't got the speed, McLaren, this afternoon, but they've certainly seemed to have the consistency, and they're bringing themselves right into the action. But they're not going to challenge Ferrari.
And Montoya taking himself, or the Williams team taking themselves, I should say, out of the action. He was sixth before he made that third pit stop of the afternoon, and that will drop him down to probably 9th or 10th place. He'll feed in somewhere around where Mark Webber is in the Jaguar, so he's got it all to do all over again.
Schumacher turns through Varianti. Bassa for another time then. Completes his 33rd lap, moves into the 34th lap. Montoya leaves the pit lane, and Rubens Barrichello is in then for his second scheduled stop of the afternoon.
Seems fairly routine. A well-drilled outfit, like all the top outfits. Just clearing the debris out of the radiators. Look at that, like clockwork.
Yeah, very nice. No, same time as his first stop of the afternoon. No drama, not too much wheel spin, certainly not too many revs, and just coast nicely on the limiter, and still doesn't manage to clear Ralf Schumacher, however.
No, that was clearly the target of the Ferrari team. It was all very, very tickety-boo, but it didn't quite work out for them, and once again he finds himself behind Ralf Schumacher. This is Cristiano De Matta in the Toyota, attacking Giancarlo Fisichella. Battle for 14th place on the racetrack. And Ferrari ready for the race leader, who's being held up at the moment by Olivier Panis, losing him a little bit of time there as they came out of the Variante Alta, the high chicane up at the top of the circuit. Down to the Rivazza though, he's managed to get past Panis, and we're expecting Michael Schumacher to come in any time now. Kimi Raikkonen is 19.9 seconds behind the race leader. Well, we'll see where they feed out, but they're going to be quite close to each other, I fancy, when at the end of this pit stop.
You're right, that's going to be fascinating. And you'd have to say Raikkonen, unless they can really get some kind of fantastic pit stop out of this, and of course it is, the fuel flow is restricted to 13 litres per second. They have quite short fueled him, James, and away goes the Ferrari. And where is Raikkonen? That's a very short fill, so where's Raikkonen then? Will Schumacher maintain the lead of the Grand Prix? Yes, he does just.
And it would appear that they've gone for a 3-stop as well, Ferrari. That's quite a light fuel load. There's no way he'll do 28 laps on the amount of fuel that he put into the car there. So, Kimi Raikkonen is in the hunt, growing and growing in stature with every Grand Prix that comes along. We believe he's going to come in on lap 45, Michael Schumacher. And we'll be working out what we believe Raikkonen's strategy is as well. We think he's going to come in at lap 41. So that phase of the race is going to be absolutely fascinating. McLaren mechanics still sitting there watching the race. This is lap 35. Michael Schumacher is leading Kimi Raikkonen. And then it's Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, David Coulthard and Fernando Alonso. Lap 37 of this 62-lap San Marino Grand Prix. It's been a thrilling tactical battle. We've had some great racing between the two Schumacher brothers at the front in the early stages of the Grand Prix. But Ralf Schumacher made a pit stop earlier than his brother, and a mesmerising period of driving by Michael Schumacher, where he lapped in the 1 minute 22s, which is almost 2 seconds faster than anything we saw in last year's Grand Prix. Meant that Michael Schumacher was able to grab the lead through the pit stop sequence. But the big winner so far has been Kimi Raikkonen, who's gone from 5th on the grid up into 2nd place, and is very much a factor in this Grand Prix. Down in the pit lane, a man who's really struggled to finish a race this year is Justin Wilson. He's talking to Louise.
That's right, James. Justin seems to have all the luck of Johnny Herbert at the moment. Justin, we know it's a problem with the fuel rig. Just talk us through it.
Well, I didn't realise until I got a call to come in for a second pit stop straight after my first one, so the fuel just didn't go into the car in the pit stop. I think it's a problem with the rig. I'm not sure. I didn't get to hear what was going on, but they was messing with the rig as well, so that could not be good news for the for Jos.
Yeah, we saw a trail of fluid coming from the car, but the car was actually okay, wasn't it?
Yeah, the car was okay. When we came in for the second pit stop, we were waiting, trying to put the fuel in, and it just overheated, so that's why we had to turn the engine off.
Bad luck.
Thanks.
That explains the fluid then that was showing behind Wilson's car. It was water and not oil. Just 2 retirements this afternoon then so far. 18 runners, Wilson and Villeneuve out of the Grand Prix, both with technical problems. But there's a lot of action to come yet, and it's all going to be absolutely pivotal on the final scheduled stops of the afternoon. Schumacher and Raikkonen just a couple of seconds apart, but then Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello and Coulthard, 3rd, 4th and 5th, are 2 seconds apart, the 3 of them, and they are all squabbling over the final podium position this afternoon. It will be crucial how they get in and out of the pit lane, how good the mechanics are, and also how good are the in and out laps of those relative drivers. So there's plenty of action to come on that one to see who can get the final step on the podium. But at the moment, the win is between Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen, it seems.
Yep, they're 10 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who lost a little bit of time with his pit stop. He couldn't get the car going again from the pit stop. Once again, Michael Schumacher coming around to lap Cristiano Di Matta. And that's Jarno Trulli in the Renault in front of him. Trulli running in 13th place. A very, very low-key weekend for the Italian, this one. Not been on the pace at all any of the 3 days that they've been on track. And he's had his head down a little bit, I think. His teammate Fernando Alonso is a factor. He's still in the points in 6th place. Look at the amount of brake dust coming off that Jordan of Giancarlo Fisichella. Well, we saw him have problems slowing down into Rivazza, and clearly he's I don't know how much brake disc he's got left there.
It's very hard on brakes around here, very hard on fuel consumption. It's very much high-speed braking areas into slow-speed acceleration areas, and that is what uses up the fuel and the brakes.
But look at this, Kimi Raikkonen now is less than a second behind race leader Michael Schumacher, so the traffic has played also a hand in this race. Raikkonen yet to get past Trulli, but it's taken Schumacher a while. He caught Trulli in the slow part of the lap, and clearly it's allowed Raikkonen to close up. Can he go around the outside of Trulli? No problem. Yes, he does, and he's less than a second now. He's taken a second and a half out of Michael on that last lap alone.
It'll be fascinating to know what McLaren think on the pit wall. I certainly everybody in the paddock were thinking that Williams and Ferrari would be fueled to lap 20. I don't know about you, James. I thought they'd get to at least 20, so they were running much shorter, and it certainly brought the McLarens into play, particularly Raikkonen. Coulthard made his way through the grid, having started badly in 12th place. But 2nd and 5th for the McLarens at the moment, and they're both in the hunt for a podium position. Michael Schumacher cannot relax too much.
No, he can't. It's interesting, isn't it? Ferrari have gone for the 3-stop strategy this afternoon. McLaren have gone for the 2-stop strategy, and you'd have to say that McLaren, considering where Raikkonen started on the grid, there was 4 cars between these two guys on the grid, and obviously that opens out, concertina's out in the opening stages. Everyone tries to jostle for position. McLaren have really made this strategy work. Is Michael struggling with the handling there, do you think?
I don't necessarily. Well, he's doing 124s. It's not great, is it? It's nothing like the pace he has been showing. But Raikkonen was a 25-1, although we know he negotiated some traffic. Alonso pits from 6th place. He was ahead of Montoya by 19.4. He will exit somewhere very close to Montoya. Let's have a look if we follow him out of the pit lane. This is for 6th place. Montoya will pass him as he's coasting down there on the limiter. Montoya did indeed pass Alonso to take that position.
Points down to 8th place this season now under the new rules, I remind you. So Michael Schumacher is leading, Raikkonen 2nd, Ralf Schumacher 3rd, 4th Barrichello, 5th Coulthard, 6th Montoya, 7th Alonso, and the last of the points paying positions at the moment is the Sauber of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's ahead of Jenson Button. Frenson's only made one pit stop so far this afternoon. He's the only, well no, he's ahead of, Jenson Button's made 2 behind him, so the BAR strategy at the moment not worked out, and that looks like one of the 2 Jaguars is struggling down the pit lane. It's Pitsonia again, had so much technical difficulty this weekend.
That's strange, obviously, the mechanics or the radio problem there. Nobody expected him. Tyres not ready, mechanics not in the pit lane, fueler wasn't ready. Pitsonia turned up and surprised everybody, and that is the net result of that one.
Yeah, that's really not how it's done, but not really the fault probably of the Jaguar team. I think that caught them a little bit by surprise. His teammate Mark Webber is down in 12th place at the moment, which is not really, with all the promise that he brought into the race today, 5th on the grid, and a car that seemed on pace to be more or less just behind the 2 top teams at the moment, and it's just not worked out for Jaguar or Mark Webber.
Here we go, this is a replay then of that surprise pit stop of Pitsonia. Isn't it awful when you know you need gas and you turn up and you think it's a 24-hour gas station, and when you get there they're closed? But Jaguars then really quite clearly had not been informed that Pitsonia was coming in the pits. Frenson has pitted 2 now as well. There he is.
So that puts Jenson Button up into 8th place, the last of the points paying position. Still only 1 point score on the board this season for Jenson Button. So this is a track he excelled on last year. Let's see if he can keep Frenson at bay to the end of the race. This has taken quite a long time, isn't it? 15 seconds for the Sauber team, so that will have cost Frenson dearly. Somebody diving into the pit lane, I think it was Jarno Trulli in the Renault, and that's Jos Verstappen walking away from the 2nd Minardi retirement of the afternoon. Poor old Minardi, their home is just a few miles down the road in Faenza. 9.2 on the stop for Trulli, and a lot of fans here for the Minardi team. They're very popular in this region, and their home Grand Prix has been really a series of miseries for them.
Michael Schumacher stretched the lead to Raikkonen now to 1.7 seconds. Ralf Schumacher still 10 seconds behind Raikkonen. Barrichello and Coulthard still within 2 seconds of Ralf Schumacher. So stay tuned, sit tight and wait for those final scheduled stops, because it's been quite manic as they really have to drive so hard on their in-laps. I think they'll be stopping within a lap or 2 of each other probably. There's a Ferrari of Barrichello having a very good look at the back of Ralf Schumacher. Barrichello wanting to get on, and Coulthard then having a watching brief on that fight.
Yeah, you can see Barrichello must be sick of the sight of the rear wing of Ralf Schumacher. He's been staring at it now for nearly an hour and not seemingly able to do anything about it. Maybe the traffic might help Rubens Barrichello. It's certainly helping David Coulthard. Look at how much he's closing on the back of the Brazilian in the Ferrari as they come down to the Variante Bassa. And once again, Cristiano De Mata, there's always somebody, isn't there, who tends to appear regularly as a back marker, a sort of...
Look at that great view then from just above the front wing of Rubens Barrichello. He's feigning an attempt to go up the inside, but clearly not at all serious about that one. Just trying to hustle and hassle Ralf Schumacher, just as Michael Schumacher did earlier in the race, into some kind of error. But Ralph's got his face full of 2 back markers who are, one of them, the Sauber of Heidfeld, I think it was, just getting quickly out of the way. And then Panis is ahead of them in the Toyota.
It's really closing up. It was Frenson actually, I think, as well, who's really racing himself for a points-paying position. He was extremely generous, wasn't he, there on the way into Tosa. Lovely onboard shots here today, both from Michael Schumacher's car, Ralf Schumacher's car, and here now on the front wing of Rubens Barrichello. Look how much that Williams of Ralf Schumacher ahead is bouncing around over the curbs. Really is the story of Imola here. You've got to be able to have a car that gets up over the curbs.
Yes, it was the Frenson chasing De Mata squabble 12th and 13th, because also just further up the road we've got Heidfeld in the Sauber chasing the other Toyota for 9th and 10th of Panis. So that is what they're lapping. Michael Schumacher and Raikkonen, of course, have already cleared these 2 cars, and De Mata clears out of the way for 2 of them. What's he going to do for the 3rd?
And you've got to feel sorry for Juan Montoya, haven't you, as Coulthard cuts down the inside of De Mata, because he's now 36 seconds behind this 3-way scrap for 4th place, for the final podium place, 3rd place. Coulthard going around the outside of the Mata there, but problems for Montoya. Fuel not going into his car at the pit stop meant that he has dropped right back to 36 seconds behind this scrap, and a very frustrating and at the moment rather lonely afternoon for Juan Montoya in 6th place.
Yes, he's 52 seconds behind the leader, 36 seconds behind this great fight for third place. Then Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello, David Coulthard recovering from getting hooked up behind D'Amato into the final chicane, and will be keen to close that gap one more time, because if Barrichello and Schumacher get together, Coulthard will want to pick up the pieces and miss the inevitable. McLaren getting ready. Normally, up until now, it is David Coulthard that has pitted first this afternoon. We think it's for Kimi Raikkonen this time around. So a little swap around then for McLaren. Who are they going to bring in first?
Well, they put less fuel into Raikkonen's car at the first stop, and that's part of the reason probably why they have to bring him in early. But it's going to be critical for him, because he's in the pits now and he's going to come out behind that three-way scrap. Very interesting indeed. On board with Raikkonen, Ted.
Absolutely, Raikkonen's been given the push board. He's been told to push like hell. They put new scrub tyres on it. There he goes. Now, what's the problem? Why is he getting away? Oh, it's the problem with the automatic pit getaway system. The drivers actually have a button they push to launch them out of the pit stop. Raikkonen had a little problem with that.
I don't think he had it in gear, as Michael Schumacher runs very wide in Piratella. Did he get away with it? Michael Schumacher knows he's got to push while Raikkonen's in the pits, and he too lost time up at the Piratella corner while Raikkonen was in the pits. I think Raikkonen was busy trying to get first gear as they were just about finishing the pit stop. Schumacher living for another day on that one. Raikkonen will get away with that because Ralf Schumacher was so far behind, but it does compromise his chance of pushing Michael Schumacher to win the Grand Prix.
It does. They've both lost time. Schumacher with running wide, Raikkonen in the pits. Who lost the most time? We'll find out on the stopwatch when Michael Schumacher makes his third stop of the afternoon. But the bad news for Kimi Raikkonen is that he's fed in behind that fantastic three-way scrap we were talking about a moment ago. Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, David Coulthard. Although Coulthard looks like he's about to remove himself from the equation by making a pit stop.
Yeah, so that's a critical one for Coulthard. He needs a good in-lap. He did a 24.2 last time around. There's your race leader. We're on board. We're leading the Grand Prix as we head down in to Tamburello, taking the curbs on the way in and missing them on the way out of this chicane. Coulthard pits now, and he'll need to get in and out there. Of course, they will now only fuel exactly to get the cars to the end of the Grand Prix, and you've got to come in. You must not rush in all wheels locked up. It scares your mechanics. They pull back a bit, and Coulthard's ready to go. Get me out of it. Took a bit longer than I thought it would, that one.
Yeah, but Coulthard back in the hunt, and he's got to hope that something untoward happens to Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, the two guys who were in front of him before he made this stop, when they make their final stops of the afternoon.
Yeah, well, Coulthard's job's not over yet of trying to leapfrog two places in this Grand Prix. This outlap has got to be maximum attack. That's what counts. Anything he can do now, any sector, any corner, he can pull something out of the bag, gives him a better chance to pass Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher to take over third place. Still on board then with Michael Schumacher. He lapped in a 1:23.5 last time around. It was the lap before that when he got all out of shape and just saved it up at the Piratella corner, and he goes through the Variante Bassa for another lap. Here then is Ralf Schumacher still with Barrichello in close attention.
Yeah, like Siamese twins, these two have been all race, and I think it'll come down to a pit stop race between them really. Whichever one of the crews can do the better job, the other one will do better in the race. But it's a critical phase of the race now for both Kimi Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher, two main contestants for the victory, as Nick Heidfeld makes his third and final stop of the afternoon in the Sauber, because this is where the time is going to be won and lost for both Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher in this phase leading up to the race leader's final pit stop of the afternoon. And well, it's been close action all afternoon. Terrific racing at the start between the two Schumacher brothers, as Cristiano D'Amato makes a pit stop, his third of the afternoon, the three-stop strategy again for the Toyota team.
And of course, every lap that Michael Schumacher can do means he needs less fuel to get him to the end of the Grand Prix. It's a few tenths less. He needs to be stationary at the refueling rig as it goes in at 13 litres per second. He needs less of those litres and less of those seconds. Barrichello, though, he's been charging all afternoon, but as you said, James, he's appeared to be staring at the back end of something all day.
Do you get transfixed staring at the same thing over and over and over again?
No, not at all. You're just looking for your apexes, looking for your braking points, and you're certainly not looking at him. He's annoying you, and you're gauging yourself against him and where he's fast, where you're not, summing up where you might overtake him. but you certainly don't begin sort of staring at him.
Actually getting a little bit mesmerised. I suppose drop back a little bit as Rubens Barrichello has. It's not quite so annoying. But then, of course, you're losing time. On board again with Barrichello. Look at all the lights on the steering wheel. All the different controls and knobs and buttons that he can push and twiddle to make all sorts of adjustments from the cockpit of this car. Now we're looking here at something on the left front tyre of Kimi Raikkonen.
It's his right front tyre. It's just showing you the amount of, it's an anti-clockwise circuit here. The grooves have disappeared on Raikkonen's right front tyre. Through wear rate, I don't think it's a major drama, but it's just demonstrating, of course, with an anti-clockwise circuit, inevitably you're going to do more left-handers than right-handers to get back to where you started from.
And the bad news for Kimi Raikkonen is his pace does appear to have dropped off a little bit in this critical phase of the Grand Prix. His last lap, a 1:25.483. Michael Schumacher, meanwhile, has just banged in a 1:22.572. 3 seconds in one lap, and that is the kind of thing that wins you Grand Prix. As the Williams team getting ready for one of their two drivers, I imagine it's probably going to be Ralf Schumacher, and that will come as a blessed relief to Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, I saw the Ferrari mechanics moving their wheel guns out of the way, so they're clearly not expecting Rubens in this lap. Montoya is well out of sequence now after that refuelling problem. Does Ralf pull it down the pit lane? Indeed he does. So we've got a Ferrari 1-2 now, but Barrichello's yet to stop again. Another set of Michelins that look very worn at the front and not apparently about to be changed on the Jaguar, but they certainly are on the Williams, putting on yet another new set of tyres, and that means that we're going to see the Jaguar appear, or the Jaguar's left the pit lane first. Where is Coulthard? And Coulthard goes through, I believe, ahead. Sorry, that's Kimi. So Coulthard is down the road, a long way down the road, actually. So that worked out very well for Ralf Schumacher. Something happened somewhere in there. He stopped. His stop has cost him a lot less time than Coulthard.
Indeed it has, and this is the phase where Barrichello really has to push hard now. You can see the Ferrari mechanics are ready for Rubens Barrichello. This lap is critical if Barrichello is going to get ahead of Ralf Schumacher, something he dearly loved to do. Another great plume of brake dust on Furman's Jordan as he makes his second stop of the afternoon. But where is Rubens Barrichello? And has he done enough on this lap to be able to rejoin in front of... It's for Michael. Michael Schumacher comes into the pits. This is his third and final stop of the afternoon. So they're bringing him in before Barrichello. And, looks routine enough.
I think he'll be easily back in the lead. Raikkonen's not been fast. He's still down in the 125s. Michael has been extremely fast. Pit stop was fine. And now it's just a run to the end of the Grand Prix. But there is Barrichello then. And he does just get out in front of Rubens Barrichello, who, of course, has, we believe, got to stop again yet.
Indeed he does, but at the moment it's Ferrari 1-2. Michael just getting out of the way there to let Rubens go through. Good tactics, good strategy. There's one or two Italian fans in front of us in the grandstand who are throwing their hands up in horror, wondering what on earth is going on. But if they think about it for a couple of seconds, they'll understand. Rubens has got to push. He's got to do enough now to get himself out in front of Ralf Schumacher when he makes his next stop, which is imminent because the Ferrari mechanics are out in the pit lane.
Yes, and of course this is where Ferrari love it most, when they're in charge of the race, and that was very smart. They radioed Michael, do not hold Rubens up. He's in a head-to-head with Ralf Schumacher, and so Michael just getting out of the way, knowing he's got a comfortable lead due to Raikkonen's currently very poor pace.
Well, that's what you call teamwork, isn't it? Schumacher moving out of the way, letting Rubens through. And you can see already how much Rubens wants it. He wants second place here. They all want a Ferrari 1-2 to try and put an end to this extraordinary start to the season that they've had. With only one podium for Rubens out of 3 Grand Prix so far. And that they really need to stem the tide of performance that we've seen from the McLaren team. Rubens into the pit lane.
Yeah, be pleased about that. It looked like he's lost a lot of rear grip. Big handfuls of oversteer through the Rivazzas. And we've just got to work out now. Ralph's stop, I just cannot see and understand quite how Ralf Schumacher was so fast on his stop and his in-lap. And the left front not moving at all. A bad stop then for Ferrari. Where's Ralf?
Ralf is coming through the Variante Bassa right now. Where is he feeding in? You can see him coming down the main straight. Rubens is going painfully slowly down the pit lane, and he's out behind Ralf Schumacher. That's not worked for them. And, well, the many red-shirted and red-hatted people in the grandstands below us are throwing their hands up at the moment and saying, what is going on? Poor old Rubens Barrichello, it didn't work for him. He's still in third place. Michael Schumacher leads on lap 51 of this 62-lap Grand Prix. Second Barrichello, third Ralf Schumacher. Lap 53 and San Marino Grand Prix in Italy, and look at this, Rubens Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher made some sort of mistake there at the Variante Bassa, and Rubens Barrichello, who'd been climbing all over the back of him for the previous two corners, was able to capitalise and jump right through. What an extraordinary piece of opportunism for Rubens Barrichello. He's had nothing but the rear wing of Ralf Schumacher to look at all afternoon, and now he has managed to dive through. Just correct something I said wrongly a moment ago, which is that Kimi Räikkönen is in second place. This is the battle for third place, of course.
Yeah, this started back at the Rivazzas, where Ralf outbraked himself, Lord Will, and he tried to hold Rubens up on the apex and lost out badly. Rubens still had enough space, and here we go. This is where it all started. Lost it on the way into Rivazza 1, held his ground into Rivazza 2. Rubens gets the better run out. Sadly, we then move away from the following action, because Ralf had to go defensive all the way to the end of the lap, and Rubens could easily pick him off.
One of the Jordans just went past us down the pit straight, sounding very rough indeed. I think it's Ralph Furman, so have to keep an eye out on him. He's down in 16th place at the moment, racing on his own pretty much, and I think some sort of misfire. Look at that joy in the Ferrari garage at that lovely move of Rubens Barrichello. You can see the order now: Michael Schumacher, Räikkönen, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Coulthard, Alonso, Montoya and Jenson Button, who was outstanding here last year, had what he considers certainly was his best ever Grand Prix, to finish 5th here for Renault, ahead of the two McLarens. And well, once again, Imola proving a good circuit for Jenson Button. He's been very competitive throughout the weekend. Also a good weekend so far for Fernando Alonso. He's managed to put the problems of the Renault's uncompetitiveness on Friday to one side, and he's just driven around the problems, really. He's in 6th place at the moment, not in a position to challenge for Coulthard for 5th, but hopefully in a position to resist Montoya, who is in 7th place, 5 seconds behind the Spaniard. And that's a Jordan. I wonder if that might be Furman. We did hear him sounding a bit sick as he went past us.
So that's the 4th retirement of the afternoon. Still 2 or 3 good battles to watch out for. Marshall's on the track, waved yellows, single waved yellows at the moment, as opposed to the double waved yellows when there's debris on the racetrack, or as we heard Max Murphy say on our station yesterday, double wave yellows means you have to slow down and even be prepared to stop. There are the final dying moments of that engine in the back of the Jordan, and Michael Schumacher with an easy lead. But Barrichello, now he's got past Ralf Schumacher, still only 5 seconds behind a slightly ailing Raikkonen at this stage. So Barrichello's still got a shot at second. We can watch that one closely. Still enough laps to go to home in on him, just about, and Coulthard just a fraction behind Ralf Schumacher, who's fourth.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about the championship situation, shall we? Because again, as I said before, they've changed the points procedures this year. Fantastic onboard footage there you see again from Michael Schumacher. You can see how much work, how much input at the steering wheel he puts in, concentration on his face. Yes, they changed the rules this year, so instead of last year you got 10 points for a win, 6 for a second place. This year you get 10 points for a win and 8 for second place. Now going into this Grand Prix, as the Jaguar of Webber seems to be coasting quite slowly, Kimi Raikkonen was 18 points ahead of Michael Schumacher in the championship. So even though Michael is getting, or looks as though he's on set fair to get the 10 points this afternoon, if Raikkonen can hold on in second place, Schumacher will only have taken 2 points out of him in the title race. And that just shows you how much the new point system, the new rules for this year, how much of a difference they make.
Yeah, some people say that they reward consistency, others say they don't reward the win enough. You should get a bigger bonus, and therefore it's too tempting to just sit back and take 8 points a second rather than having a real go at that win. Michael Schumacher leads by 18 seconds. He's backed off now from Raikkonen, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Coulthard, the top 5.
Lap 57 of the San Marino Grand Prix. Into the closing stages now then. Michael Schumacher has a comfortable lead of 14 seconds over Kimi Raikkonen, but it means he's only going to take 2 points out of the Finn, his World Championship lead at the moment, and it's going to be very slow progress at this rate for Michael Schumacher to get on terms with the 23-year-old, because Raikkonen is being Mr. Consistency this season. He's been on the podium at every single Grand Prix, and he's heading for yet another one today. 5 to go for race leader Michael Schumacher. The real interest at the moment is the battle between Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard for 4th place. Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari is 3rd, and then it's the Williams and the McLaren. Ralf Schumacher, David Coulthard nose to tail. Coulthard coming through so strongly after a poor grid slot. Alonso 6th, 7th Montoya, and Louise has news for us.
Yes, I'm stood here unfortunately with Mark Webber, who's just had to pull his car into the garage. Mark, what's gone wrong?
Feels something on the drive shaft at the moment. Just have to check it out, but it wasn't the race we wanted, unfortunately. We had a bad start, and we had a problem with the cruise as well. So
Started so well, but it's all got a bit pear-shaped, hasn't it?
we've got a lot to work on, but still the potential's there. I'd rather work on a reliability of a quick car than a car which is not reliable and slow as well. So
Thanks, Mark.
okay.
Yeah, that's a sentiment shared by I think just about all drivers. If you've got basic speed, you can work on the reliability. When he said a problem with the cruise, he referred to the pit lane speed limiter, which is why he was penalised and had to have a drive through. So can Rubens Barrichello close the 4-second gap to Raikkonen in the closing stages? That's a tough call. And can Coulthard find a way past Ralf Schumacher for 4th? They're just a few metres apart as they're circulating, not in vision at the moment. And there is Rubens Barrichello. There's the other battle behind them then. So the top 5 all in the pit straight, all in the main straight. And Coulthard not able to close that few tenths of a second gap to Ralf Schumacher.
You can see Kimi Raikkonen's really got his head down. He wants this second place. He knows how little damage will be inflicted on his championship lead by Michael Schumacher if he can hold on to second place and just take a couple of points away from him, and he can live with that, a gap of 16 rather than 18. But the McLarens will be pleased with their afternoon's work, I think. It's been very good, great strategy, 2 stops, and as you were saying, Martin, the confidence you need to carry that extra fuel in qualifying, which you know is going to penalise you in terms of lap time because of the extra weight you're carrying, but you know it'll pay back for you in the race. So a bold strategy by the McLaren team, and it really has paid off for them this afternoon.
Yes, I think Raikkonen's not had a good final stint. He's been lapping anywhere between sort of mid-25s and late 23s. Did a late 1 minute 23, just 2 laps back. And I don't really understand why his pace is moving around so much. We have seen him running a very, very worn front right tyre. Nonetheless, Raikkonen has not had his best stint in this final sector of the race, and that is why Barrichello is really closing him down. It was 3.1 last time around. Now it's 1.8 second as Barrichello pulls a 1:22.9 out of the bag, and Barrichello really with so little time to do it, but so much speed in his pocket to have a go at the back of Raikkonen.
Yeah, took 1.4 seconds out of Raikkonen on that lap. He's got 3 to go. Can he get onto the back as Giancarlo Fisichella blows up the Ford engine in the back of that Jordan? So that appears to be 2 engine failures, I think, for the Jordan team. Obviously, the Ford guys will want to have a bit of a look at that. But let's concentrate on the battles up the front here. Rubens Barrichello closing on Kimi Raikkonen and David Coulthard closing on Ralf Schumacher. There's a lot of oil, I would imagine, gone down into the Rivazza there.
It's a lot of smoke. At the moment the oil looks like it's being burned, but we'll watch them as they break down into Rivazza. That is where the leaders are starting to approach. Variante Alta now, and the gap is down to 1.1 seconds now, so he's taken another half second out of him during this lap so far. Down, the oil flag is out, stationary oil flag, and it'll be down the outside. That is where Fisichella went, and neither driver having a problem. I think the oil coming out of the back of the Jordan was all burned up.
It's still floating around the haze. You can see the drivers coming through. And Kimi Raikkonen knows a thing or two about hitting some oil when he's got a Ferrari behind him. It cost him the win last year in the French Grand Prix. He's learned a bit from that. He would have been very, very cautious. You can see he's got the acceleration, no problem, down the main straight road. Rubens Barrichello just taking a tiny, tiny fraction of a second out of Kimi Raikkonen on that lap. And unless he does something enormously bold, it's going to be very difficult in the 2 remaining laps for him to get on terms with this McLaren, but that's not stopping the people around us here from going absolutely bananas. They're all up on their feet. They do love a challenge here in Italy, and they like a racer, and Rubens is giving them something to shout about in the closing stages. Also giving them something to shout about, Michael Schumacher at the front. A fantastic drive from the world champion, carrying a big weight on his shoulders today with the death of his mother in the early hours of this morning, which certainly has shaken both him and his brother Ralph up, but he's completely put it out of his mind this afternoon and driven impeccably and is leading the race by 8.6 seconds from this battle here between Kimi Raikkonen and Rubens Barrichello.
This Raikkonen appears to have responded, doesn't he? And it's about 4 tenths up Raikkonen going a bit faster, but Barrichello's made another 4/10 time, and look, he can now really see even the suspension working on the back of that McLaren, but only one lap remaining. Surely it'll need a mistake from Raikkonen to release Barrichello to make it a Ferrari 1-2. And I feel a bit sorry for Rubens. It was the bad pit stop, the left front wheel not going on, that cost him an easy second place this afternoon. Raikkonen driven a very solid race though, hasn't he, with you'd have to say probably the right strategy.
Indeed, the right strategy. You said at the beginning of the commentary, Martin, that he was heading for a podium today. That was his ambition. He's gone a little bit better than that. He's managed to get himself up into second place. A good effort. You just saw Jenson Button there in the back of your frame, coming out of the toaster there, the BAR Honda of Jenson Button. Another good afternoon for him in 8th place. And with the reliability of all the front runners, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Williamses, they're all going to finish this race. There really wasn't an awful lot more Jenson could have done, but he'll be looking at Fernando Alonso in the Renault and thinking, that was a good effort. The young Spaniard again showing what class he has, coming through in 6th place, but serenely at the front, through the Variante Alta. The high chicane for the last time is race leader Michael Schumacher. Hitting the curve somewhat more furiously is Kimi Raikkonen, making sure that Barrichello doesn't get a piece of him in this final half lap of the Grand Prix. Who knows, possibly the last time we'll come to Imola. I'd be sad about that. It's one of my favourite tracks. It's a great place indeed, despite all the history and the sadness that we've had here over the years. But never mind that, because Michael Schumacher is coming through to take his first win of the 2003 Formula One season, and he will be very pleased with that. And look how close Raikkonen and Barrichello were at the end there. So just 2 points coming out of the lead of Raikkonen in the World Championship. He will be ecstatic with his performance today. Rubens Barrichello, well, he can rue that pit stop mistake, problem that lost him time with the left front wheel, but very solid drives by all the guys at the front. Terrific, furious pace, certainly in the early stages of the race. Ralf Schumacher finishing 4th, Coulthard 5th, Alonso, Montoya and Button the remaining points finishers. Have to ask you, driver of the day, Martin.
It's a close call, isn't it, between Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen, I think, did a good job with his strategy. Wasn't very consistent in the final sector. I think it has to go to Michael Schumacher for that amazing lap he did when he most needed to, the 1:22.5. I think he's been the most consistent driver of the day. Had the fastest car, but I think he did the best job of all of them. And I have to say, I think there were some spectacular drives, but for me, Schumacher, the driver of the day. Michael, that is.
So Jenson Button picking up the final World Championship point for BAR. 9th was Olivier Panis in the Toyota, still to score a point in 2003. Heidfeld 10th, 11th Frentzen, who was at one point in the points playing positions. D'Amata 12th, seemed to get lapped a great deal. Trulli 13th, very strange quiet weekend for him. There's Ross Brawn, he'll be pleased. I know he was troubled by the fact that the Ferrari team had what he described as a messy start to the season. Some rain-affected races. The new rules took a little bit of getting used to as well, but Ferrari seemed to have put that behind them. There's Jean Todt, the generale of the team, the sporting director. So, Drivers' Championship, Raikkonen on 32 as a result of his performance today. David Coulthard 19, Michael Schumacher 18. It's amazing, isn't it? 23-year-old Kimi Raikkonen is really showing them all the way. Podium every single race so far this season.
Yes, in the constructors, McLaren still lead comfortably, 51 points ahead of Ferrari's 32, but Renault are 3rd and Williams 4th now. So Williams not making the points this afternoon, really. They needed to. Ralf Schumacher 4th, not on the podium. Montoya with various dramas in the pits and not getting the fuel, and back in 7th, collects a couple of points. But they will not go home happy, I think, to Grove this evening. Ferrari will certainly coast down the road and be very happy.
Yeah, from 2nd, Ralf Schumacher, and 4th, Montoya on the grid. That's not really the kind of result you'd expect, is it? They let McLaren in through the door. They even let Renault in through the door. So, yeah, there'll be some questions asked. I think Patrick Head, the team's technical director, didn't travel to this race. He's back home with his family for Easter, but also putting a few hours in at the factory, looking for new performance parts on that car.
I can hear him sitting at home now, shouting at the TV, "All right, James, all right, Martin, I know." And
he's probably got a foam brick, hasn't he? It's the sort of thing Patrick would have. He hurl across the lounge, hit the television, bouncing off the screen. I imagine that the phone line from Patrick's house in Chelsea to here in Imola is burning hot at the moment. He will not be pleased. But you can't say that about these guys, can you? Well, the FIA have told Michael Schumacher that in light of his mother's death this morning, if he doesn't want to go on the podium, he doesn't have to. They would completely understand. So we wait to see now exactly what the procedure will be, how Michael Schumacher will react, and exactly where we go from here. He wins the race. Coulthard, Raikkonen second, Barrichello third. They are the three men who should, with all accounts, be going up onto the podium. You can understand that looks like Michael's quite understandably very moved at the moment, finding it a little bit difficult to get out of the car. He's managing it now. There's Kimi Raikkonen giving him a handshake, very sporting. Rubens Barrichello just helping him out as well. Black armband you can see on the right arm of Michael Schumacher, and well, I suppose he was doing it for his mother today, wasn't he? Both the Schumacher boys were. And Michael, a win in her honour. Elizabeth Schumacher died earlier today. Herbie Blash there on the left-hand side, assistant sporting director, works with Charlie Whiting on all the major decisions on whether to start races, whether to put out safety cars, escorts the drivers up onto the podium, one of the really key men behind the scenes in Formula One racing. And Montoya, Rubens Barrichello having a chat, you can see there. Montoya's afternoon really very messy indeed. Pit stop went wrong for him, no fuel went into the car. So now we wait to see exactly what will happen on the podium. Will Michael Schumacher come out?
Schumacher won by just 1.8 seconds in the end, but of course he was just cruising around, keeping the car off the curbs in the last half dozen laps. And with Barrichello pushing Raikkonen so hard, they closed right up on Michael. Coulthard didn't make it into fourth. He finished 6/10 of a second behind Ralf Schumacher. Schumacher fourth then, Coulthard fifth, Alonso sixth, Montoya, Button. And that is when you coast in, you go into all the on the outside of the racetrack where all the pieces of rubber have been discarded. Your hot tyres begin to cool. They pick up the discarded rubber and adds a nice 2 or 3 kilos in weight to your car, just to make sure you clear the 600 kilos, including the driver, at the end of the race. Michael then moving over to the pit wall to acknowledge his team for his first Grand Prix victory of 2003.
Yep, 65th of this extraordinary career, the 5 times world champion, of course, and significantly, I think, also, and you can see it's written all over the faces of the guys at the top there, it's the 160th Grand Prix victory for the Ferrari team, so a real milestone set by them here today. And they came in order to get the win that they so desperately needed to really kickstart their campaign. Michael Schumacher has had a faltering start to the year. It's the worst start, in fact, the first 3 Grand Prix that he's ever had in his Formula One career in terms of not appearing on the podium. But he's certainly put it right today. Just look how low those cars sit above the ground. It's millimetres, isn't it? It's not inches, it's millimetres.
Yes, and they certainly bounce across those curbs, and they're really not designed. The curbs are higher than the suspension travel allows, so they have to take off, basically. There's nowhere near enough movement in the suspension to soak up those curbs around here. Replay then of Michael Schumacher calmly, quietly, slowly getting out of his Formula One car, reflecting maybe on a few things that have happened in the last few hours, and I'm sure for a number of reasons he really wanted this win today.
Bit of a briefing going on there on the podium, so I wonder whether Michael isn't going to come out after all. But Jarno Trulli was saying yesterday his father had to have a major operation just before the Grand Prix last year, and he said it's very, very difficult with all that sort of stuff going on to divorce your mind from your family and your thoughts and to get on with the racing. But certainly Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher done that today. Michael the winner, Ralf fourth. I just imagine he'd be a little bit disappointed with that. He was running second. He was running in the lead, in fact, in the early stages. Got past Michael off the start-finish line. A terrific start for Ralf Schumacher. And there is Michael Schumacher. He is coming onto the podium. What a pro.